I finally feel I'm in a position to offer a worthwhile comparison of these exemplary vocal microphones from Earthworks. I'm going to look at them in the order that I acquired them, so it'll be the SR40V, followed by the SV33, followed by the SR314, and to some extent the Icon Pro, which will be my narration mic the whole way through. You could see my previous reviews for the details about the microphones. This is just really a comparison between them. What follows firstly is examples of me using them. I've used them a lot lately, not so much live of course as you fully understand, but I'd used them live before when I did the reviews. But this is very detailed stuff. It's a simple recorder, and simple recordings, just a voice and a keyboard with a split bass. So voice is very prominent the whole way through, so you can hear. I should mention the the lowly BR800 that I used. Can't really handle these. It can just about, but the trim has to be on the very minimum, otherwise it overloads because they're all with a high output. So it's a lowly machine compared to these microphones, but I think it does okay, and I'm satisfied that the differences between them, as I've experienced them over this time, are clearly audible, to me at least. I hope they are to you. The clips are double clips, if you like, mostly from one song, but sometimes I had to choose another one because I wanted what I'm going to call portrait singing, and also some louder stuff and further away from the mic. As some of you may know when I talk about the portrait microphones, is that really then it's about capturing everything, every little detail, rather like the portrait lenses I've been relating them to. That you recognize the person, there's something there's no doubt, there's no distortion, if you like, in the face, there's no color shift in the face, there's no kind of fuzziness or artifacts and so on. It's just very, very truthful. The portrait is to trace, to reveal. So the first section of these clips is that kind of singing, perhaps, and then I do some louder stuff. Then after we've done that, I'll come back to you and discuss some more. Oh, I should mention also that there is no compression, no EQ. It's all live, and you can see how I'm working with the microphone and hear the result of that, hopefully. There is reverb, which I like, and I'm thinking perhaps a tad too much, but hey.
Girl, we made it to the top. We went so high we couldn't stop. We climbed the ladder leading us nowhere. Two of us together, building castles in the air. We shared our daydreams one by one, making plans with so much fun. I miss the hungry, miss the hungry, miss the hungry, yes, I am. Here we stand, just me and you, with everything or nothing to. I miss the hungry, yes. Once upon a summertime, if you recall, we stopped beside a little flower stall. A bunch of bright forget-me-nots was all you let me buy you. I'm living Today is just another day. Tomorrow is a guess. But yesterday, how I long for yesterday, to relive one yesterday and its happiness. When Joanna loved me, every town was Paris, and the month is May. When Joanna loved me, every day was Sunday, and every month was May.
Before I tell you what my feelings are, I'm going to play short clips of the portrait section of the songs back to back to make it easier perhaps to distinguish, and after that I'll tell you what I notice.
Girl, we made it to the top. We went so high we couldn't stop. We climbed the ladder leading us nowhere. Once upon a summertime, if you recall, we stopped beside a little flower stall. Today is just another day. Tomorrow is a guess.
Well, let me tell you what I noticed. And noticed as I was doing it, and I've noticed over some time comparing these. All of them have a similar kind of speed, including the Icon Pro, kind of speed and definition, which I notice. Leaving this to one side, kind of. You can use it for singing. I have done, if you look at the review. I'll just go through these. This is the SR40V, and at the time I reviewed it, I called it La Bestia. And yeah, I notice in those clips, even though I've used this for a long time now, there's a certain push, if you like, but the detail is still there. That's what I noticed with this one. I can hear it on the clips that I've shown you. This is the SV33, and what do I notice here? It just seems to be just that bit more open, just bigger, more walk through, and has a tendency to kind of almost disappear, which is what I found when I first had it some time ago now. The SR314, I notice that little prettiness. And it's still underpinned, but I immediately notice, if you listen to those clips, I immediately notice that it sounds, somehow I sound prettier. Somehow I sound prettier. For me then, back on the Icon Pro. For me, might as well mention the Icon Pro, fine. Like it, it's got the same qualities. Looks really pretty. It's not too big. If I were to use one mic for everything apart from live, then for me it would be this. I was using this here, but I now use it for various things. It's safe, keep unplugging it, and also it's pretty large. It's very neat, this one. This, for me, is a Grandmaster. I can't remember what I called it. Supernal Sensualista. Supernal Sensualist. The SV33. It's a studio mic, of course. This, the SR40V, I stand by what I said. I think fine in a studio as well. Good for live, tight rejection, and that little bit of energy. But will work in a studio. Bear in mind with these you can unscrew this if you wanted to and use be careful, make sure you've got sufficient protection and blasts but you could use studio type. I can't see why this couldn't be used in a studio. You can hear for yourself, see what you think. And the SV314. Of any of the shaped mics, this, as I said before, just falls into the portrait category for me because it's got sufficient of that detail going on. Bear in mind, in the studio, again, you can remove this or just this part. You've got some options and put a... Again, I can't see why you couldn't use it in a studio. See what you think when you listen. For me, maybe the SV314, pretty to look at. And I use it live. Well, have been. Maybe just edges towards the pretty. A little bit too much for me. I'm not pretty. I compared it to the Neumann KMS 105, which is prettier still, but doesn't have the woof and has a bit of a box on my voice. So I much prefer this to the Neumann. If I'm looking to go a little bit pretty, this would be my go-to. Oh yeah, one general point applies to all mics really, I think, that you may have noticed, is that when I'm singing higher and louder, there's less differentiation between the mics. I would almost say that if you're going to sing high and scream and loud, then almost any mic would do. That's not quite true, but you get the idea. It matters less and less. Maybe I might talk about that just for a second. This could all be baloney, because it's just my feeling. One of them is that when you're higher up in your voice, obviously there's less information. All the lower information isn't there. The higher information is there and the harmonics above it, but the harmonics are in the lower stuff as well. So the lower stuff has to cover lots. As higher up you get to the limit of our hearing, the less there is. And also, I think the harder it is to discern any real detail. Maybe because, if you're up around, 10 kilohertz, that's difficult to hear into, I feel. Whereas lower down with the slower, lower frequencies, there's more, plus the balance of top, which is what I think these mics do really well. I like the warmth and I like the weight, but I don't like mud and I don't like lack of clarity, whereas they seem to have that area, as I've said many times, it seems to be what's very well resolved. So rather like the portrait lenses, which are expensive, fast, and do their thing, you can use them for architecture. You shut the aperture down. When you shut the aperture down, the depth of focus and everything gets much wider. But why would you do that? Why would you spend that much money on a fast lens and then use it all shut down? But you can. So if you do mostly portraits, you can use it for other things as well. I would say with these mics then, if you don't need the detail, but the detail's still there, doesn't really matter. So if you like to scream and you're rock or blues and gospel, whatever, you like to scream and shout, and you're at the top of your voice and you're a long way from the mic, so you don't hear this anyway, you'll notice when I'm further away, because that part scarcely gets any louder as my voice gets louder, the body of the voice gets louder and then drowns that part out to some extent. But what I like about these mics is I can very quickly go back in and do stuff like that. I like to move around a fair bit. So for me, they're wonderful paintbrushes for that. For yourselves, I suppose really sensibly, you look at what kind of singing you do. If your voice is sitting in amongst the band a lot, the band are quite loud and your voice sits there, maybe you don't need it, but it will work perfectly for it. But it might be excess, might be over the top. Maybe if you can do recording as well, financially that might work out. You can use all of these for both. Anyway, I hope you've managed to garner something from all that, and it's been maybe of help to you in understanding in a practical way what the differences are between these Earthworks microphones, as I see them anyway.